Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and hope everyone is doing great. In this video, let's try to understand how you can migrate from an on-prem MySQL to the Google Cloud, right? So generally when you enter any sort of interviews, like for example, Google Cloud interviews, the general question you will be coming to ask you like, uh, how have you migrated from on-prem to cloud, or have you migrated those? Whether migration might be in instances, or a migration can be a MySQL one, or a migrations can be any sort of Kubernetes clusters or any sort of thing. But generally the question comes up like, have you migrated? The migration part plays a major role when when we are moving towards cloud, right? So thought of doing a video where you can clearly understand how you can perform migration on Google Cloud platform. Okay, so what exactly are we gonna do in this video is, let's try to migrate a MySQL instance, okay, from on-prem to Google Cloud platform. So for this example, or for this infra, I have already created an instance, an Ubuntu instance on Google Cloud platform. This is a virtual machine, right? This is not an any sort of platform as a service offering. This is a virtual machine, and this is an infra as a service offering. And on top of this instance, I have installed MySQL, right? So this is the on-prem part. And from here, using some sort of a database migration service, we'll be migrating this MySQL instance to Google Cloud platform. To be very precise, we'll be migrating it to Cloud SQL. So Cloud SQL is nothing but it's a platform as a service offering from Google Cloud where you can host either a MySQL instance or a SQL server or a PostgreSQL. So either of one you can host in Cloud SQL. So we are migrating a MySQL instance that is being present on-prem. In our case, it might be a virtual machine that is being hosted as an infra as a service offering. And from there, using some sort of a database migration services that Google is offering, we will be migrating this instance to Cloud SQL instance, right? So this is what we want to plan to achieve in this video. Let's see, right? Let me go to my console. I have already created an instance with the name on-prem MySQL and has successfully installed MySQL on top of it. Let me log into this machine. Uh, okay. You can use a Cloud Shell or you can use the Cloud SSH there here itself. But I prefer terminal. That's the reason I entered here. Let me go to my root and let me clear the screen. And if I go to MySQL terminal, right? And as of now, there are no databases that are newly created. Only the default databases are available. So if you see the normal databases that we'll be getting when you're creating a MySQL instance. Let's do one thing. Let's create a database. Okay. Let's create a database name by name, what we call migration. Okay. And in this, let's try to insert some data, because after we have migrated from on-prem to cloud, there should be some data that is present, right, in order to validate the stuff whether our migration is successful or not. So to do that, let's create a migration database, and let's try to insert some data, and from there let's try to migrate this to Cloud SQL. Okay, so let me create a database and insert some data. Let me do one thing. Let me log into this machine from a MySQL workbench. Let me create a new connection. uh, On-prem MySQL, and my host name is my IP address, public IP address of my instance where my actual MySQL is being hosted. And the user I log in is Shiva, and the password is, I can't disclose the password, but let me enter here. Uh, okay, and after that, let me try to test the connection. Yeah, it's successful. That means I was able to successfully establish a connection from my workbench to my on-prem MySQL instance. Okay, let me create and let me log into that. Now let me create a database here, and let's try to create some table and insert some data over there. Our intention is not to, at least my intention is not to show you how you can create databases or create tables and insert data. You can directly Google it and try to create example. But our main agenda is to make sure the migration is successful. These databases that we are creating right now should be migrated to Google Cloud, right? So let me see, show databases. Uh, only these are available, that's fine. And let me create database by name migration, because it makes sense for us. Create database migration. Okay, and let me show the database again. The migration database is there, right? Let me create a rows now. This is just a creating a table. I just created a table. I have already copied it in my note, Sublime text here. You can use any sort of a table you want. Just we need to have a table and a row or two just to have some data out there. Let me use migration database. Okay, and let me create a table. And now let me select the values. Select star from persons. Let me see the output of it. I should be having a row that has been inserted. Hmm, let me see the output. Create database fail. Create database migration. It's not successful. Uh, okay. Or else let me do one thing. Create a database on-prem migration. Let me create this one. Okay. And let me use this one by name on-prem. Okay. And let me create a table. Now, if I want to select the values, I should be getting a single row that is inserted. So as of now, we have only created a table, right? So let me insert some values there. Okay. Mm, let me execute this query. Okay. And select star from the persons table. And this should be giving me a row that has been successfully inserted, right? So this is just a basic database queries, right? So now let me go to my MySQL one. Okay. You can go to here where it is. You can go to the hamburger menu here, and from there you can go to database migration. In that, we will be using a database migration service that is been given by Google in order to migrate your on-prem or other cloud providers as well. So there are two options. One is the connection profile and another one is the job migrations. The connection profiles is to establish a connection from a source one and to the destination. So let me create a profile. Firstly, you can create a profile here itself, and then you can create a migration job, or else in the migration job itself, you are having an option to create a new profile there itself. So let me create a source. My source is a MySQL one because I'm having a MySQL installed on an instance. So that's the reason I'm selecting my source database engine as MySQL. And let me name it as connection as on-prem MySQL. And the connection ID will be the same, the connection profile ID. And my host IP address is the IP address of my instance, where exactly is my MySQL hosted on. 3306 is the port MySQL listens on, and the username is Shiva, and the password which we have created in our on-prem MySQL database. Okay, and let it be creating it in the US Central region. And as of now, I'm going with the encryption type as none. It's up to you if you want to choose any sort of encryption method or mechanism, then you can create accordingly. Let me create a connection profile, and once the connection profile is successfully created, then we will be creating a migration job. That job will be helping us to migrate our MySQL database that we have created right now from on-prem to Cloud SQL. Okay, it is successful. Let me go to the migration job. Let me create a migration job here. Okay, and let me name this as a migration on-prem. And the source database is MySQL, and the migration job type is, there are a couple of options here. One is a continuous one, and another one is on time. So what exactly does it mean is, uh, as of now, you are having a database here, which is in on-prem, and you want to migrate this to Cloud SQL, right? So if you choose continuous option, when and where a new database is being created in on-prem data center, it will be migrated to Cloud SQL. It will be a continuous process. And the other option is, if you see here, if you see, other option is one-time option. One-time option in the sense there will be a one-time job that will be running, which will be helping us to migrate all the databases at that given point of time. And once that is done, the job will be done and the migration will be successful. If you go for continuous one, when and when a new database will be created here, it will be migrated. So let me go to the continuous just to see whether my continuous flow is being implemented or not, right? And let me save and continue. Here we have only created the on migration job name, and we have chosen the source one. That's it. And what is the migration job type? Save and continue. And the next step, we'll be choosing a source. This source is the one that we have already created as a connection profile, the previous step, right? This is the one. Or else if you haven't created there, you will be having an option to create it itself. But as we have already created the connection profile, let me go with that. And it will be populating all the details here, like the source IP, the port number, the username that you have entered there, and the region. Let me create, right? And now the destination. So actually what happened is we have created the left part, the left source is completed. The source is a MySQL instance. It is an infra as a service offering, which is in on-prem. And the other part is we are trying to migrate this to Cloud SQL. Cloud SQL is a platform as a service offering, and this will be in the Google Cloud platform. So now this job is trying to migrate the databases that you have created here to GCP. So this will be acting as a source, and this will be acting as a destination. So in the previous step, we have created a source. If you see, the second step is the source, define a source, and this one is to create a destination. So what exactly are we creating? We are creating a destination one, and the password we need to enter. And remember one thing, this password is something that you are entering for the Cloud SQL, not for the on-prem data center. That means the password that you have created is for the user called as a root, and the password. This password is used to log in to this Cloud SQL instance. And the previous one that you have entered, the user ID, Shiva, and the password is used to connect to this on-prem data center. So don't confuse. Source user ID and password will be helpful to log into the source MySQL instance, and the user ID and the password that you are entering inside the destination destination will be helpful to log into the Cloud SQL instance. Okay. So if you see here, the username is set as a root by default, and I'm giving me the password. Let me enter the password again. Okay, and I can choose the MySQL version, whichever version I want to have. As of now, Google Cloud supports three versions: 5.6, 5.7, 8.0. You can choose either of one. Let me go with the 5.7, and I'm choosing a data region. So the step that you are performing here, what exactly it will do is it will be going and creating a Cloud SQL instance. As of now, there are no Cloud SQLs available here. Once you have created a destination, you should be having a Cloud SQL instance that has been created, right? So I'm choosing the destination. Let me go with the defaults one. I'm going the public IP address. There is no need for the private IP. But if you want to establish a connection and log in with the private addresses, then you can go with that. Right? Let me enable that. That will be creating a private IP in your VPC, the default VPC, and the private IP address will not be from your default VPC. Uh, Google Cloud SQL will be creating its own subnet, and from there it will be trying to get an IP address. Right? If you haven't enabled this, also that's fine. And this is just to create a Cloud SQL instance. And the machine type that we are choosing is D1 N1 high memory, which is already having a 26 GB of memory. That's not required for me. I can go with a smaller one. Let's assume 13 GB is fine for me. Or else you can go for a minimum as well, 1.7 or so. But just to make the demo a bit faster, let me have a higher machine so that the migration will be a bit faster. And I'm going with SSD1, and I can go with the capacity of 50 GB. So all the details that you have entered here are the details of your destination, where it is this one. So you have entered a Cloud SQL server with a memory of 13 GB and 50 GB of SSD and the user ID and password, and you are entering the public and private IPs are being created. All these IP details are to create a Cloud SQL instance. Okay, not for the on-prem one. These are just to create a Cloud SQL instance, which will be helping you to migrate the database from your on-prem to your Cloud SQL. Right, let me go there. uh, Everything is fine. 50 GB, create and continue. So let me see once if I have missed anything. I'm giving the name, the password, the database version. The zone is fine because in the US Central one, either you can go for any of the four zones that are available, or else you can ask Google to create the high availability zone. That's fine. Right, let me create and continue. Create database destination. Creating a database destination will immediately launch a new Cloud SQL instance. If you see here, what it's trying to do is it will be trying to create a new Cloud SQL instance. You'll build it for the instance accordingly. That's fine. So once I create a destination and continue, I should be seeing an instance here in my Cloud SQL. Okay, let me go with that. Right, so you can perform this step once the third step is successfully completed, but this is in process because it's trying to create an instance. It is similar to going to a Cloud SQL one and creating a MySQL instance. Both are the similar things. So creating a Cloud SQL instance will be taking at least a 5 minutes or so, because it needs to create an instance on in a zone inside a US Central one with the configuration that we have provided, right? So let's wait for this to be created, and after then we'll be trying to establish a connection method and test the job. And once the job was successfully tested, so what the test do is it will be trying to establish a connection from a source to cloud, from a source to destination. And once the testing was successfully done, then we can try to migrate our job. Okay, so let's wait for the Cloud SQL to be created. Let me refresh here to see the progress. uh, if you see, there is a migration on-prem master is going on, and it is inbuilt having a migration on-prem Cloud SQL. So once the my complete migration was done, we will be making this migration on-prem Cloud SQL as the primary database. So as of now, this will be acting as a replica. It's a read replica. You can't perform any sort of operations. Once the migration was been successfully done, you can make this migration on-prem Cloud SQL as a independent MySQL instance where it will be acting as your primary database. If you see here, it's a MySQL read replica only. You cannot perform any sort of write operations on this database, on this Cloud SQL instance. This is majorly used for your migration part. Okay. Let's see what it is created. Uh, Cloud SQL itself takes at least 3 to 5 minutes of time. Okay. In the meanwhile, let me show you something else. So as I told you earlier, this after the migration is completely done, we will be making this as the primary database, primary Cloud SQL instance. We won't be making it as a read replica because the migration was successfully done, and we want to perform some write operations on the database. In order to do that, we need to make sure this is been promoted. As of now, this is a read replica. We need to promote this one. We'll be seeing that even. Create a destination. Let me see. For because we have created MySQL databases from my Cloud SQL, MySQL Workbench, right? Let me see if that been reflecting here. Show databases. Right. There is an on-prem migration and use. Let me validate once. Use on-prem migration. Select star from persons. Mm, there is no data available here. Let me see. This is being inserted, right? Uh, Create database. Use on-prem migration, right? And select star from persons. Persons the table that we have created there. One, so we can see one data, but why am I not seeing here? Right, it is there. There is one data, one row that has been created, right? Let's go to our job. Still it's in process. Okay, it's completed. So the destination was successfully completed. So if I go here, the process was successfully done. So I'm able to have a migration Cloud SQL instance in the SQL page. So I'll be choosing the connectivity method. So there will be multiple connectivity methods that you can establish when you're doing some migration, whether it might be you can allow specific IPs, or you can have some SSL tunneling that you can do, the same tunneling that we do for VPN and so on, VPNs, just to establish some private connectivity. Or you can go for VPC peering. It will be having a Google network been taking care of the peering connections, right? And the default VPC where my on-prem is there is a default VPC one. So let me configure and continue. So after this was done, we will be getting an option to test a job. If you see, this is the migration job name and the source is the MySQL and the destination is the Cloud SQL for MySQL. This is a Google platform as service offering, and the type is a continuous type, and the host port is the source is a port that we have entered, and these are all the other details. Let me test the job. Once this is green, when the testing of the migration job is green, that means we have successfully able to establish a connection between a source and test. And from there, you can try to establish, you can try to migrate the databases that you want. Come on. It's trying to test. Okay, the test was unsuccessful. MySQL bin log is configured incorrectly in the source database. Check the configuration follows the MySQL documentation details. Bin log is not enabled. Okay, let me go here. Let me log out of my MySQL, and this is a MySQL instance. Okay, there are some property files that you need to take care. etc um, MySQL and mysql.conf.d, and we need to edit the MySQL conf.d cnf. Okay, so under the MySQL D, okay, you need to enter something called as a bin, the bin log one. Okay, you need to enter log bin is equal to MySQL hyphen bin, and the server ID you can mention it as one. Right, these are the data that is missing from here. If you see, the error indicates the bin log is missing. The bin log is configured incorrectly. So now we are configuring it is correct. Log hyphen bin is equal to MySQL hyphen bin, and the server ID is equal to one. Right, let me save this one. When if you did some sort of operations on your MySQL instance, it's a best practice to restart them, right? So let me restart systemctl restart MySQL hyphen service restart space MySQL hyphen dot service. Okay, the MySQL instance got restarted. Let me retest the job again. Mm, let's see. Hope this is successful, and then we can migrate our actual database. Testing okay, successful. If you see here, the test was successful. Your migration job test was successful. You can create this job without starting it, or you can start it immediately. So what the exact message is, it has successfully established a connection between these two, the source as well as the destination, right? So now you can try to create a migration. You can start your migration. You can create the job and later you can start the migration, or else you can create and start the job. Starting this migration job will begin the full dump process of the sources. Okay, that means it will trying to dump the source, and that the dump will be migrated to your databases, the newly created database engines. Create and start. This will be interesting because we are trying to migrate some stuff that is in on-prem to the cloud provider, right? So let's see how this goes. The job is getting created. Okay, and it has not yet started it. Now it got started. So what it is doing, it is starting the job. The job is to make sure the database that is here. For example, we are having an on-prem database here, right? This database should be migrated here. That's our agenda. Because this is a on-prem one, it's an infrastructure service offering, and this is a GCP Cloud SQL one, which is a platform as service offering. Hmm, come on. Okay, it started. If I go and refresh here, okay, it's performing some sort of operations, because if you see here, this is in starting state. Once it is completed, we'll be getting a message over here that the migration was successful. The migration is completed actually, because we have only created a single database, right? So it won't take much time. That's the reason, in order to save some time, we have only created a single database. But if you're having a larger databases, so basing upon your databases, the time will be defined. So if you have n number of databases and number of rows and all, it takes some time to migrate from a source to destination. But as of now, we are only having a single database, right? So it's running, the full dump is in process, and the CDC is in process. Okay, and if I go here, migration on-prem one, this is the migration job actually. It's a continuous type and it is completed. It is not yet completed, but it's in process. Okay, let's do one thing. Let me go to this machine, the on-prem master. If you see, this is having only the details. It won't be having any details to log in. So let me go into the read replica, and you can see the connections here, like the connection of this instance. This is the newly created MySQL instance. This is the Cloud SQL one that has been created on Google Cloud Platform as Service offering. So this is the IP address, the private IP, this is the connection strings and all. And let me log into this machine. You can directly use the open Cloud Shell one. Okay, it will be establishing a connection directly, or else you can have a public IP and whitelist your public IP, and from there you can directly use your MySQL workbench as well. So let me zoom a bit. It's allowing a whitelist, allowing a IP for whitelisting. Or let's do one thing. Mm, let's connect it from here because we have a bigger screen. Let me exit out of my MySQL instance. This is a virtual machine, and let me connect to my databases. This is a SQL connect gcloud command. This is my instance name, the Cloud SQL instance, and the root user. Let me connect quite. Let me enter here because we have a bigger screen to view the stuff. So I'm logged into this machine. Which machine it is? If you go here, I'm logging to this migration on-prem machine from my Cloud SQL stuff. So it will be allowing the IP, whitelisting the IP, and from there we'll be getting a password to log in. This password is the one that you have entered in the destination one. It's not the source one, because this is a new server. So you need to enter your new password. Welcome. And I just log in to this machine. Which is the machine? This one. I just log into this machine. Okay, not this one, the source one. I just log into source machine with the user as a root. And let me see the databases. Show databases. You can see, right, on-prem migration one. This database is being present in my in my on-prem one, and this, if you refresh here, on-prem migration, this migration have been migrated to my Cloud SQL instance. So successfully we have migrated a databases from my on-prem data center or an on-prem virtual machine to Cloud SQL one. If you see, let me show the content there. Use on-prem migration. Select star from persons. I need to get the data. If you see, there's single data. And this instance as of now is a read replica. That means I can't create any sort of databases. For example, create database new. It won't allow us to create because the migration one that you have created, this one, this is still into a read replica only. You cannot perform any sort of write operations. So for now, the main agenda that we thought of is migrating from my on-prem, right? From my on-prem to GCP. This is successfully done using a job called as database migration service, and we have successfully migrated the databases that are being created in on-prem to Google Cloud, right? So now the last finishing activities are, if you see here, the migration job is completed. I mean, the process completed. If, for example, as we have already chosen a connection type as continuous, if you inserted some sort of data here, this data will be auto populated to into a newly created Cloud SQL instance. Okay, you can practice that even. And now I need to promote this instance, because if you see, this is the primary instance, and under this there's a new instance called as a read replica. Now what happened is, our job was migrated completely and all our database has been migrated successfully. Now we need to make this primary migration on-prem as my primary instance, where I can have my read and write operations. So let me promote this. So promote disconnects the source from the destination. That's fine, because we have already successfully migrated everything. If you feel that you want to have for some more time, because you need to have some data that needs to be still migrated, you can wait for some time. But for now, the database that we have created was successfully migrated, and this will be disconnecting the source and the destination, and promotes the destination to a writable instance. That means this instance that we have created during the process of migration will be converted into a writable instance. It is recommended to stop. That's fine. Let me promote it. Once the promotion was done, if you refresh here, reload, that's fine. If you see, this machine is coming out of this one, right? So it is creating a newly individual Cloud SQL instance, where we have a complete Cloud SQL instance of its type, and we can have a read and write operation that you can do on this instance. So till now, during the process of migration, you are able to have only read replicas. You can't write some actions, which I already seen here, right? You cannot perform a operational read only instance. But for now, as this will be your primary instance, this will be having both read and write replicas as well. Okay. So in order to do that, let me cancel this one, and let me log into the same instance again. Gcloud SQL Connect migration on-prem -f user root, because the root user is the one that we have using to connect to my newly created Cloud SQL instance. This one. So the connection was successful now. There are no issues with the connectivity. We have migrated successfully all this stuff. Now I'm trying to log into this machine to verify whether I can perform write operations. It will take a minute or so just to whitelist my IP, the password. Okay. And I install successfully. Let me show the databases. Show databases, and let me select this one. Select on-prem migration. Sorry, use on-prem migration, and let me create databases. Uh, create database new. So successfully, like I was able to create a new database, right? If I show databases, I can able to see the newly created MySQL database. So now this instance has become a primary instance, and this will be acting as an individual MySQL instance or individual Cloud SQL instance, where you can have both read and write operations, right? So once the job was successfully done, so you have migrated everything, you can delete the connection profiles. Firstly, let's delete this one, the migration job, right? Delete, because the migration was successfully done. There is no need for the job again. So we are deleting this. Deleting this will make this what we call the migration prim master will be deleted, because we are deleting the job, and the job itself be deleting all the servers that have been created. Let it take it time. Okay. And as of now, there are no migration jobs. And let me delete the connection profiles as well. Okay. And let me delete this one. Sorry, refresh, so that maybe a minute or so later, we will be seeing only a single database. This will be obviously deleted, or you can directly delete it from here itself. You can go and delete it here. This is a migration master one. Let me delete. There's extra space over there. Delete. So with this video, we have successfully seen how you can create a database migration service, which will be helpful for you to migrate your on-prem MySQL instances and the data over there to Cloud SQL instances, right? So we have successfully done that, and this is the instance that is been migrated. So now this instance you can use from your Google Cloud as well, right? So that's it, guys. I think hope this video is helpful for everyone. If you like the video, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and do share to your friends if you like the video. See you again in the next video. Bye for now. Bye.